There are places in this world that seem to exist outside of time. Small villages tucked away in green valleys, where the air is a little cleaner and the pace of life is a little slower. I found myself in such a place not long ago, visiting family I hadn't seen in years. The sun was warm on my skin, and the days were long and peaceful. It was a place where you could hear the birds sing their songs without the noise of the city getting in the way. It was a simple life, a good life, and I felt my own worries begin to fade away with each passing day. It reminded me that sometimes the most profound peace is found in the simplest of settings. One afternoon, I decided to take a walk by myself. I wanted to explore the village and feel its history. My feet led me down a winding path lined with old, whispering trees. Their branches seemed to reach out, guiding me forward. I wasn't going anywhere in particular. I was just letting my heart wander. The path opened up into a small, quiet clearing. There, surrounded by a low stone wall, was the village cemetery. It was not a sad place. Instead, it felt calm, like a garden where stories were resting, waiting for someone to come and listen to them. As I stepped through the old iron gate, a sense of deep tranquility washed over me. Flowers bloomed in vibrant colours beside the weathered stones. It was clear that this place was cared for with great love. It was a place of remembrance, not of sorrow. I walked slowly among the graves, reading the names of people who had lived and loved in this very village. I imagined their lives, their laughter, and the paths they had walked. Each stone was a marker, a final chapter in a long story that had unfolded under these same skies, a testament to a community deeply connected to its past. I felt a connection to these souls, even though I had never met them. They were the ancestors of my own relatives, the roots of the family tree I had come to visit. This small piece of land held generations of history. It was a library where the books were made of stone, and the words were carved by time and love. I spent a long while there, just breathing in the quiet air and feeling the weight of all those lives. It was a powerful reminder that we are all part of a much larger story, a continuous thread that stretches back long before we were born and will continue long after we are gone. As I continued my walk, I started to look more closely at the engravings on the gravestones. I read the names and the dates, as one often does in a place like this. But something began to trouble me. The first stone I examined was for a man who lived a long life, according to the birth and death dates. Yet, below his name it said, lived for 7 months. I blinked, thinking I must have misread it. I moved to the next one, that of a woman. Her dates showed she lived to be over 80 years old. But the stone said, lived for 2 years, 5 months, and 12 days. A cold feeling of confusion started to creep into my heart. I moved from one stone to another, my pace quickening with a growing sense of alarm. A child's grave read, lived for 19 hours. An old man's stone, covered in moss, declared he had lived for 5 months and 3 days. What did this mean? Had some terrible tragedy, some unknown plague, swept through this peaceful village again and again? The thought was horrifying. It didn't make sense. The village felt so full of life, so healthy and content. The short lifespans carved in stone told a completely different and terrifying story. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Perhaps it was a code, a local custom I didn't understand. But the numbers were so specific, so painfully short. I saw a gravestone for a man who had apparently lived for a full 90 years. Yet the inscription claimed he had only lived for 11 minutes. 11 minutes. How could a life of 90 years be reduced to just 11 minutes? The peace I had felt just moments before was gone, replaced by a heavy, unsettling mystery. I looked around at the beautiful, serene garden, and it now seemed to hold a dark and sorrowful secret. The contrast was jarring. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the flowers were in full bloom. Yet everywhere I looked, the stones whispered of lives cut impossibly short. I felt a deep sadness for these villagers, whose time on earth seemed so brief and fleeting. I thought of my own life, the years I had lived, the moments I had cherished. How could anyone here have experienced so little? The quiet cemetery no longer felt like a place of peaceful rest. It felt like a monument to immense loss, a place where every stone cried out with a story of a life that had barely begun. Just as my confusion turned to grief, I heard a gentle sound behind me. It was the soft snipping of garden shears. I turned to see an old man, his face lined with the deep, kind wrinkles of a long and thoughtful life. He had a warm, friendly smile and eyes that held a calm wisdom. He was carefully tending to the roses that grew beside a weathered gravestone. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace, as if he were tending not just to plants, but to the memories themselves. He seemed to belong here, a natural part of this quiet, reflective place. He must have seen the troubled look on my face, because he stopped his work and gave me a gentle nod. "A beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, his voice soft and comforting. I could only manage a small nod in return. My mind was still reeling from the inscriptions. "You seem troubled, my friend," he continued, setting down his shears. "Are you looking for someone?" I shook my head and pointed to the gravestone nearest to us. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "This man, it says he only lived for 3 months. Why are all the lives so short here?" The old man's smile did not fade. Instead, it seemed to deepen with understanding. He walked over and stood beside me, placing a gentle hand on the old stone. "Ah," he said softly, "you have discovered our little tradition. It confuses most visitors." He paused, looking out over the rows of graves as if they were his children. "You see?" he began, his voice taking on a storyteller's tone. "In our village, we have a different way of measuring a life. We do not count the years from birth to death. That is just the time a person exists. It is not the time they truly live." He explained that when a child comes of age, their parents give them a blank notebook. From that day on, he said, we encourage them to write down every moment that brings them true happiness. The time they spend with a loved one, the moment they see a beautiful sunset, the feeling of laughter with good friends, a quiet hour spent reading a wonderful book, the joy of a shared meal. He looked at me, his eyes shining. "These are the moments that make up a life. These are the moments we count." The caretaker was not just a gardener of flowers, he was a gardener of memories. I stood there, speechless, as the weight of his words settled over me. The mystery was solved, but it was replaced by a revelation so profound it almost took my breath away. The numbers on the stones were not a measure of time spent on earth. They were a measure of time spent in happiness. When someone in the village passes away, their family opens their notebook and adds up all the moments of joy they recorded. That total, the hours, days, and months of pure, unadulterated happiness, is what is carved onto their gravestone. It is the measure of how long they truly felt alive. The old caretaker gestured to the stone that had first caught my eye. "This man lived for 90 years, he said, but his stone says he lived for only 11 minutes. He was a wealthy man, always busy with work. He spent his whole existence chasing money and success, but he forgot to write in his book. He forgot to notice the joy. My eyes welled with tears, but they were not tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of understanding. The cemetery was not a place of tragedy. It was the most honest place I had ever been. It was a testament to the pursuit of joy. I looked around at the graves again, but now I saw them in a completely new light. The child who lived for 19 hours must have had a day filled with so much love and wonder that it filled her entire book. The woman who lived for 2 years, 5 months, and 12 days must have led a life overflowing with laughter, love, and beautiful moments. These were not short lives. They were lives that were rich and full, packed with the only thing that truly matters. The stones were not memorials of death. They were celebrations of life at its most vibrant. As I left that cemetery and walked back down the winding path, the world seemed different. The lesson from that quiet village and its wise caretaker has stayed with me ever since. We are not put on this earth simply to work, to survive, or to count the passing years. We are here to feel. We are here to love, to laugh, and to notice the beauty that surrounds us every single day. Life is not measured by the breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. And the most important question we can ever ask ourselves is not how long we have lived, but how well.